Welcome to rSlash Entitled Parents, where a mommy demands, "Give my son your alcohol." Our first post is from UnoriginalUse. Now, for a bit of context. Last weekend was Liberation Day in Holland, and many cities were having festivals to celebrate. Most of these festivals have free entrance, so they tend to crack down on people bringing their own food and drinks to increase profits from beverage sales. A mate of mine lives within the area where the festival is taking place though, so usually we drop our booze at his place and retrieve it during the festival. Since it didn't seem like a terrific idea to walk around with a bottle of Jack Daniels, I mixed it into a 1-liter Coca-Cola vanilla bottle with just enough Coke that it looked like Coke and went into the festival grounds. While walking around with the bottle of Coke, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Festival etiquette is to move over to the side to let somebody pass, after which I move along. I suddenly feel a hand grabbing my shoulder and trying to pull me back, so I turn around and I'm faced with a typical Karen. "Where'd you get that?" She points at the bottle. "I brought it from home." "Can my kid have some?" Me, not wanting everybody to know I had booze on me, said, "They sell Coke over there. You can buy your kid a fresh, cold one." "They don't sell vanilla Coke there, and he doesn't like the regular one. He wants yours." And she holds out her hand. If he doesn't like the regular one, I'm pretty sure he won't like this any better. Meanwhile, the kid has started squealing about how he's thirsty and wants that one. And Entitled Mom starts giving me a demanding stare. "Okay, lady, I'm gonna be honest with you. Half of this bottle is whiskey, and I don't think it's a good idea to give the kid whiskey." "You're lying. You just made that up so you wouldn't have to share with my baby. Now give it to me." While I kinda shrug and turn away in an attempt to disappear into the crowd, the kid grabs the bottle with both hands, wrenches it from my hand, and makes a run for it, his mom in tow. I follow them and find them just in time to see the kid take a few massive swigs from the bottle, after which he starts violently throwing up almost immediately. Figuring the best move for me would be to not further pursue the now vomit-covered bottle of Jack and Coke, I decide to head over to my mates and mix a new one. In passing, I throw the Entitled Mom a "told you" and make my way into the crowds. Within seconds, Entitled Mom charges me and starts attempting to take a swing at me. "You poisoned my baby! Security!" We're separated by bystanders and a stall holder gets security, which questions both me and Entitled Mom. "He gave my baby a bottle of poison and told him it was Coke. I want him arrested." "Sir, what's in the bottle?" "A pre-mixed whiskey and Coke, somewhat on the generous side with the whiskey." "And why did you give that to a kid?" "I didn't, sir. I was mostly planning on getting smashed myself, to be fair. They thought it was Coke, wouldn't believe me when I told them it was booze, and snatched the bottle from me. What you're seeing here is just the result of the kid taking a drink before I was able to stop him." At this point, a bystander chimes in, confirming that he saw the kid snatch the bottle from my hand, although he hadn't heard the conversation. Security tells the mom to not pull that stunt again, to take her still crying kid to the first aid post, and instructs me to be more careful with the next batch I'm inevitably about to make. You know, putting aside the booze stuff, what I can't understand is why these mothers want their kids to swap spit with strangers. Can you imagine living the rest of your life with mouth herpes? Because when you were 5, your mom gave you a bottle from some random stranger and you drank from it? Our next post is from Top Gorilla 17. Long ago, way back in the before time, I worked for one of those bulk warehouse club stores. My trade was simple. I was a wrangler of the Silver Buffalo and dutifully retrieved the old ghetto strollers I did. The job in and of itself wasn't the worst I'd ever had. I got plenty of exercise, got to be outside, and generally didn't have to interact with the members. Calling them customers was taboo, for the most part. For the most part. The thing about this job is that the company I worked for had a reputation for being cheap. Thusly, more often than not, I was on my own out in the parking lot. Big whoop, you might say. You gathered carts. You should see how hard my job is. Yeah, well, shut up. This is my story, butt munch. I digress. The reason that being alone sucked is that this store didn't have just one kind of cart. Heck, they didn't even just have two kinds of carts. You had your classic garden variety cart, the kiddie cart with a plastic facade to make it resemble a car, the electric scooters, which weren't supposed to leave the store but did so with alarming frequency, and finally the bulky, hard to control flatbeds. On top of that, whenever someone needed help loading their haul into their minivans, I was the guy they called. You know, because the greeters, cashiers, and managers were all busy. As you might expect, one man cannot be in multiple places at once, and as a result, on some of our busier days, it became incredibly difficult to keep enough carts in the vestibule. Our story begins on one of those days. So there I was, chugging along like a good worker drone, struggling to keep up with the sheer volume of people coming in to buy cheap bulk goods. Sure enough, I get a call on the radio. From my manager. OP, we need you to help some members load their purchases. I'd love to, but I'm barely able to keep up out here as is. Just do it, OP. You can afford to stop gathering carts for 2 minutes. Narrator. He couldn't. I didn't want to push my luck, so I complied. After spending 20 minutes loading people's purchases because when one person needs it, suddenly they all need it, I came back to find my vestibule a near ghost town save for a single line of carts that was half gone, and the Karen. I won't waste time describing this specimen. She was the prototype. You know what she looked like. There she stood, menacing, tapping her foot with such speed that could make any metal drummer green with envy. You could collect the contempt in her gaze in a jar. Where are the big flat ones? I blinked for a moment. I'm sorry? Ugh, Mexicans. For the record, I'm very much white. Where are the flat ones? Oh, you mean the flatbeds. I'm sorry, I was just helping some other members load their merchandise and haven't had a chance to. Oh my god, I don't care about your excuses. You have one job, and a trained monkey could do it. I just want this lady out of my face, so I don't fight it. Sorry, ma'am, I'll grab one from the parking lot for you. You'd better. So I go back out to the lot and find a whole line of flatbeds sticking out of a crowd, blocking several parking spaces. I push them all into the vestibule where she waits, huffing about how I'm wasting her valuable time. I separate one from the rest and bring it to her. I'm terribly sorry about the wait, ma'am. She leers at me with utter malice. Unbelievable. And with that, she dismisses herself into the store, where she will be someone else's problem. I shake my head and return to doing what I'm paid to do. About 15 minutes later, I'm returning a line of carts when I see her pushing her flatbed to her Miata and jawing about stupid people, most certainly referring to me on her cell phone. You know what she had bought, what she had insisted on having a flatbed for? A cake. This wasn't even like a big cake. It was one of those little circular numbers. Anyways, I witness as she continues to yammer on about how I nearly ruined, I tell you, her precious baby's birthday party, when the most glorious thing happened. Still clutching her phone with those hyalized scoop claws of hers, she attempts to pick up the cake with one hand, the plastic topper pops off, and she spills the cake all over her undoubtedly expensive designer outfit. Seething with white-hot rage, she locks eyes with me. You get me another cake now! Terribly sorry, ma'am. I've got one job, and these carts won't gather themselves. I walked away, poo-eating grin plastered on my face as her shrieks faded into the distance behind me. I've had my share of nasty customer interactions before, but this one really took the cake. Our next post is from Gadgets MWe. A pregnant woman tried to take my taxi despite having seen me waiting outside and having heard me make the call. She even said, "Waiting for a cab?" To which I replied, "Yeah," before I got back to my phone games to pass the time. About 10 minutes pass and my taxi arrives, and I head over, but the woman says, "Sorry, but this is my taxi." The driver asks for me by name and the woman says, "That's me." I'm like, there's no way you have my name and called the same cab company. I call an unpopular taxi company because I'm friends with a few of the drivers and this was one of them. I say, "But I called it," and she's opening the door already. The driver literally says, "Hey, so this is her taxi," pointing to me. The woman looks upset and says, "But I'm pregnant. I really did call this taxi too, and blank really is my name. She's trying to steal my taxi." I don't even know this woman, and I'm getting really upset because I've worked a long day and don't need this. The driver and I exchange frustrated looks since he knows me and he knows I called. And then he says, "All right, I'll use my phone to see who called the cab." He uses call recognition and dials the number. My phone goes off. The pregnant woman now tries a new tactic: racism. "All of you Pakis," he's from East India, "are the same. You'll believe anyone who gives you $1. Anyway, I scooted around to the other side to get in behind the driver while he kept all the other doors locked so she couldn't get in. She was furious and yelling the whole time, and my driver starts pulling out and says to me, "I would have happily taken her to where she wanted to go with you, but at this point, I'm just going to tell everyone to avoid her." He took her picture to warn his fellow drivers about her racism and potentially threatening behavior, since by the end, she was threatening to break windows, and I went the heck home. I don't even understand the reasoning. What kind of person is going to be like, "Oh, well, you called me a racial slur. In that case, let me help you out." Our next post is from the Kiwi247. When I was 12, my parents moved us to a new place and our neighbors were unpleasant. There was the entitled mother and the father. I never met him, so I can't call him entitled, with 2 sons. One was 13 and the other was about 8 or 9. The older brother was a decent guy. We were school bus pals, but the younger one was an issue. But looking back on it, he probably had a social disorder like Asperger's or perhaps ADHD. My mom did not like this kid. A few incidents happened before with him, and my mom nicknamed him the orange-haired goblin. I'll call him OG. This story is told from my mother's perspective as she dealt with entitled mom. Despite this happening over 10 years ago, I do remember that it happened, but the written dialogue here is pulled from my mother's retelling of the story, so there's a tad of embellishment. This was in the day of dial-up in my country. It was fantastic. My mom and I had a system where I'd quickly load a flash game with a heads up, then disconnect from the internet and plug the phone back in. It was the school holiday, so it was just my mom and I at home when dad was at work, so it was an otherwise empty house when this happened. My mom said, "OP, you're supposed to give a heads up when you're unplugging the phone. I need to make a call." Me, from the backyard, "I'm not on the computer though, I'm outside." Mom pokes her head out the kitchen window, sees me, looks confused, then turns around. She and I have the same idea, so we both head to the room with the computer and find orange-haired goblin. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" "My mom told me I could use your computer." "Why don't you use yours?" Despite hating this kid, my mother is not unreasonable. She's not going to get annoyed with an 8 to 9-year-old. "I broke it." "Well, I'm sorry, but she can't decide that. You have to ask her permission. Besides, you can't let yourself in our house anyway. You can finish the game, but I need to plug the phone back in so you can't load anything else." Mom then gives me a look that meant, keep an eye on him. She later told me she didn't want him to break our computer if he indeed broke his own, so she needed me to keep an eye on him. The kid then leaves. Then, 10 minutes later, we hear a knock on our door. I go to answer, but my mom gets there first. "My kid told me you won't let him on your computer." "Sorry, who?" "My son." "Oh, right, the kid who let himself in. He told me you told him he could use my computer? Why is that?" "His was broken and I needed to entertain him." "So that makes it okay? I wouldn't have minded letting him if you had just discussed it with me first." "He's an angel. There's no harm in him using it." "Clearly there is if he broke his." At this point, entitled mother must have been getting annoyed. I heard this part for myself as she started shouting very loudly. He only broke his keyboard. He spilled his drink on it. It's safe for him to use yours because he learned his lesson. Still doesn't give him or you the right to come and go as you please and use our property without permission. But you said you would have let him, so what's the problem? My problem is a strange kid I barely know just walked into my house and used my computer because his mother said he could. If that's how you treat your neighbors, then you or your children aren't welcome here anymore. My mom then slammed the door, and that was the last we heard of Entitled Mom, though she'd stare at us if she saw us leave the house. My mom would make jokes about the kid if she saw him in the street, like, "Oh man, it's the orange-haired goblin. Remember to lock the door." When school resumed, I was talking to the older brother on the school bus. He told me that his mother asked him to steal our keyboard if he ever comes around again. He understood his mother was a wackadoodle, so we just had a laugh about it. I think the easiest solution to this problem would be for OP's mom to say, "Oh, well, if it's okay for your son to come over and use our computer, then I'm sure you won't mind sending my son over to your place to feed himself. Sweetie, go ahead and go over to the neighbor's place and make yourself a sandwich. I'm sure they won't mind feeding you." That was r/Entitledparents, and later today I actually have a phone call with the people at the merch store, so hopefully we can get that set up pretty soon. I know it's been like a week or two since I put out a call for designs, but I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm still working on it. It's going to take a little bit of time to get the store set up, but hopefully I can get that out in maybe like a week or two. I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing because I've never set up, a big merch store like this before, but hopefully we can get some cool Yugo puppy bloopers and funny Karen t-shirts out for you guys pretty soon, so stay tuned.